In this episode, we're speaking to Charles Carillo. Charles is a managing partner of Harborside Partners, a real estate syndication firm, and has been actively investing in multifamily and commercial real estate since 2006. Since that time, he has invested in over 200 million worth of investments in real estate. Charles is also the host of Global Investors podcast, where he interviews professionals about investing in US real estate. Let's speak to Charles and find out how he changed his life by changing his mindset. Let's find out. And remember, if you want to know how you can upgrade your money mindset, then click on the link www.millionairefoundations.com and watch my free training. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And today I'm so excited. We have Charles Carillo. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, Charles. Charles, everyone's heard your intro. They know how fabulous you are, but please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
So I am a real estate investor. I've been investing in multifamily real estate since 2006.
Awesome. Fantastic. So before the massive crash, right?
Yeah, it was a very interesting time.
Yes, it was interesting time. You entered right at the peak of the season, which is 2006.
That's right.
And then you weathered the storms in 2008, which is awesome. All right. So talk us through, Charles. Okay. So talk us through where did you start and how did you end up being here, and how did you weather that storm? That was a massive, massive storm to be able to deal with in 2008. So talk us through your journey.
You're right. So just a little background on myself. So I'm born from a small town in Connecticut, and I grew up in a real estate investing family. My dad was a real estate investor since he bought his first multifamily property in 1984, a 6-family property. So from a very young age, I started in the business with my dad, let's say, well, learning from my dad, not really in the business. And but he owned a lot of apartment buildings with a partner, and they're not the best properties in the best areas. So it was a very interesting experience going through that, and how he bought properties, how he managed them, because he self-managed them. He had a small team of people that worked with him for him to manage those properties. And not something I was really interested in at the time. Being younger, I just like the properties weren't that great, and it wasn't really a sexy industry, it seemed like, to get into. So, but I think during high school, I really realized the power of having the residual income, having the consistent income that comes from the passive income that comes from owning real estate, and that was one thing that really interested me. So when I left college in 2006, I purchased my first property, as you rightfully said there, at the peak of at the end of 2006. And it was a very interesting time buying it. It's similar to the frantic that was going on here in like 2020 to, I guess, 2021, 2022, of people buying properties. And but then everything, as and interest rates are higher now than they were back then. I think my mortgage was like 6.5% when I bought there. But what I did is I bought a 3-family property, which now we call, in the real estate investing sphere, they'll call that house hacking, where I lived in one of the units and rented out the other 2. It was about 1.5 miles from the college I just graduated from. So I rented out the 2 other units to other people I knew from college. And it worked out great. I mean, it took care of pretty much my whole mortgage with those other 2 units. And it kind of dipped my toe into becoming a real estate investor hands-on. And then, 2007 happened, 2008. And at the end of 2008, I bought another property, another 3-unit property. And then 2009, at the end of that, I bought a small commercial property, which was a small apartment building. It had 4 residential units and then had 1 commercial unit in it. And that was a very interesting time in the market, because everything, unless you were buying residential properties, like 1 to 40 unit properties that could be financed by like the FHA, they call it the government financing back, nothing was selling because there's no financing available for those type of properties. So it was you couldn't refinance the properties. The only way of making money was just buying them very low cash and then having to rent them out. Right. So it worked out well. It was good. And I during this time, I self-managed properties and all this kind of stuff, and then kind of grew it from there.
Wonderful. Now, you went to college and you bought a property. Talk me through that, because that's a very unique way to go to college. A lot of the times when you think of going to college, you think of outgoings and living halls and whatever else and all the other expenses. But you turned it on the head, which I think is a great strategy and something I'm looking for my daughter to actually buy and then rent out the other places so that that rent can cover the mortgage plus you get a little bit of extra pocket money to live off as well. What made you do that, and what gave you the confidence to do that? And how old were you at the time?
So I had just graduated. I never did it when I was in college. I just
Ah,
my friends were less studious, let's say, and didn't graduate on time. So they were easy marks for being tenants to me when I actually did that. It was no problem renting. I've never really had problems renting apartments. It's always pretty easy to rent apartments, but it's something that for the first year or two I had people that I had known living there, and it was fine. There's some lines that you have to kind of draw in the sand to get stuff done, but it's not nothing turned out terribly. But my dad gave me the idea for doing the house hack, and
okay.
we don't now they call it a house hack. Back then it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? You would go through and explain people what you're doing, which was trying to minimize what you're paying in mortgage, and it's a great way of going. And I told other people in college to do the same thing, and no one did it. And it's fine.
Mm.
But it's also one of those things is that, see, the beauty of that was that if someone got out of college when I did and bought a single family house, and, a year or two later, they found themselves greatly underwater and say they had to move somewhere for a job or they just couldn't cover it, they would have to now figure out something with the bank.
Mm.
If you had gone my route and that same situation happened, like when I moved to Florida in 2012, I literally just rented out the unit and left. You know what I mean? I had put a management company in place of all my properties and stuff like this, but it was something that I didn't have to sell a property, and if it was in a down market, I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff because you're just replacing and renting a unit out. It's much easier, and then you can kind of weather the storm until, or kick the can down the road, however you want to say it, until the value comes back up. And so it gives you a lot more freedom. Now, of course, with freedom, I mean, there's going to be a little bit more responsibility in that sense. But if it's done correctly, it can be a great way of doing it. So it was my dad that implanted it into my mind. And then it was, he kind of worked from an arm's length as a mentor for buying property. And mainly what he was saying was just buying in better areas. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I'd show him a property. He was like, no, buy a better area. That's not a good area. And that's great advice. And it's like the first advice I tell people now. It's very difficult to get swept up in properties that you think are inexpensive that are deals, but they're just not great properties.
Mm.
And those are not going to appreciate. They're not going to be your best return on value or
So
investment.
what would you say were your biggest lessons in your early days when you were starting out, straight graduating from high school and going and running business for yourself? It is a business on the side, or maybe your full-time business. What was the biggest takeaways and what's the biggest learning thing, experiences you would you fall back on or go back and tell you yourself about?
So I think the big one, the big learning moments in that was, for the real estate's perspective, it was really just when you're buying properties, as I said, buy better properties. It was buy properties that when you're doing your first investing into your first rental property, it's important to buy properties that require minimal work. Don't get into large renovations. It's just something that's going to, I mean, it's just, you can't take it on as a new investor. And it's something that every time I see it from new investors, it's always like a mess. They don't know how to estimate it. They don't know how to manage it. They don't have the right people to hire to do it. And, once you get down the road and done a handful of these, that's when you can take on these larger projects. And I did that on my second project, not on my first one. And, so it's that's one thing I would say. The other thing too is that if it allows you to dip your toe in when you're doing this, when you're doing the house hacking, into becoming a landlord, because there's pros and cons to everything. Like, you're living next door to your tenants, which isn't really the end of the world. It's fine. And I never had any issues there, but it's something that if something goes wrong, you're not driving, half hour somewhere to look at something. You're literally going downstairs. If you work at home, you open up the door, handman comes in, fixes something. You know what I mean? It's very easy to manage in that sense. And so it's an easier way of becoming a landlord is by buying a property, living in. Also, you get really good financing if you're buying a 1 to 40 unit property. So we're multifamily, so 2 to 4 units. you're able to really get great financing as a first-time home buyer here in the United States. So that's another way where you can get in for like 3.5% down. So that's really the main thing about doing it. As you know, I was running an online business at the time, so this is, as you said, like a side hustle, and it was just something. And I was, self-employed at that time as well. So I've been self-employed since before getting out of college. So it's something, or before going to college. So it's something that I'm really used to. And I don't know, it's just something that when I'm, looking at properties, or when I'm looking at investing to something or doing it, I really have a plan of what I'm doing. And the times when I become more focused, it's been easier to accomplish that.
So let's elaborate that. When you say, when you focus on something, it becomes easier to accomplish that. Explain that to us. Why does that happen? I know the reason. I just want to know from you.
Yeah. No, it's, everybody has a different perspective on it. And so I would just say that when you're able to, focus, when you're able to cut off other distractions, that's when you're going to be able to, you're able to really pour yourself into what you're working on. And, I see people that will have like a, shiny penny kind of syndrome type thing. And they're like going here, then it's over here. And they're like, well, it could be from anything. It could be like from you running a business and you're like, okay, I'm going to change my business to go this direction now, or I'm going to start a new business because of this, or I'm investing in something different because of this. And I think that's incorrect. I mean, if you're, it's something that once you focus on what you're doing, and you can, not saying that you can't go to that new thing down the road, but the real thing is focus on what you're doing now, build this as you're building it. And then if you want to add this on in the future, or what you're doing, or how is it going to assist you in the future, you can hire someone, part-time, full-time, whatever it is. You can partner with someone to bring on that additional kind of line that you want to bring into your business. But initially, I think it's really just focusing on it. Very simple. And I think if you read on just any type of biographies on successful entrepreneurs, there is a very important part of their business, of their life, that they've just stated that they say no a lot. And it's really important to do that, and to really figure out what your goals are, how you're going to accomplish that, and getting rid of, all these other distractions, so you can just focus on. In the beginning, you're doing this, I was focusing on 2 things, which is, but I wasn't focusing on like 10 things, you know what I mean? And the real estate was a more passive thing too. It's like when I had money, I bought property for my business, and then you would just kind of manage it. And that was one part, like a part-time business that you're really running, where you had a real focus on it. And when I had to put third-party management in place of, what I was doing when I moved to Florida, because I didn't want to sell them. So that added so much, took a lot of stuff off my plate, and added so much more time to my ability to really grow my main business, which allowed me to buy a lot more property. And it was allowed me to look at more properties, because you got rid of like a lot of tasks. You were kind of forced to get rid of a lot of tasks that if I had not moved, I would have probably still been doing for years after that.
So what was the other business? You said you had another online business.
Yeah, so I had an online business, and I started it in college, and it was a payment processing business that my partner, my brother, runs now full time. And it's a very niche business, and we started it. He started his own, I started one, and we combined them after a couple of years, and he went full time in running it. I think I want to say like 2018 or so. And but it allowed us to, I did a lot of traveling because of that business, because we had a lot of clients in Europe and partners in Europe that we worked with. And so it was something that it allowed me to, it allowed me to do some traveling, and allowed me to, that was another business that was run off of passive income as well, because you'd set up an account and you get paid as they run payments and stuff like this on a residual basis. So it's similar to real estate in that sense. And that's kind of like industries that I like dealing with, businesses that really generate cash flow on a monthly basis. But it was, that allowed me too, is that when I, in 2019, I started a podcast on investing in the United States. And I got that idea from speaking to people I worked with abroad, and they were like, well, how do we invest into the US? And I was like, I don't really know, because they would ask you, common dinners with your clients, and they're asking you about what else you do and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Digging into what you do outside of your immediate business interests that you share together. And that was real estate. And I was so happy about it. It was such a great, just like really a passion of mine is, buying properties, renovating them, renting them out. and it's like a win-win for everyone. It's just a great business. And people were like, well, how do you do this? And then, I was able to start bringing investors into this, like in 2018, 2017, when we started working with investors to invest into our properties. But that's kind of like the whole thing about how I did it, was running that little payment processing business. And then anytime I had additional money, it was going back into real estate. And then it kind of changed it around, where my real passion, I realized, was the real estate, wasn't so much my online business that I was running.
So what I'm hearing is just organically grew into the level that it has now. And so you started bringing investors on board when because there are people in Europe who are interested in investing in the US, but because US has a lot of favorable, like what you just said, we don't have that here in UK. We don't have, we don't have multiple, apartments like that. And to have, it will be residential being a completely different thing, and it doesn't have those favorable aspects that you just mentioned. We won't have that. If I buy a four apartment building here, like a house which has 4 apartments in it, I'll be able to get residential on one. The other 3 will be still buy-to-lets. They will not come under the same thing. So we don't have those laws which help you to build that kind of portfolio that you just mentioned. And so it's interesting for people, obviously investors aboard, to buy into the market, which, and especially the US has a very booming market. I'm not so sure at the moment, but you have until recently, because of COVID, the market across the globe, I think, was booming for real estate, wasn't it? Okay, so here's another question to you now. So in your life, you have very slowly but organically transitioned from one form to another. Went from university, studying at university. At the same time, you ended up having your online business. So you became business owner at that time, and then you simultaneously changed into the hat of being an investor and being a property manager, obviously while living in it. And then you gradually had additional properties, so became a landlord for additional properties, and then you had a management company to handle the stuff, and you were to focus more. And then eventually now you've become, where you have a company where you allow people to invest in yours. You've taken your roles very gradually, very slowly. It seems, when you look back in hindsight, it seems very normal for you to go in that direction. What's the biggest difference in you that you find as a person? So Charles now, and Charles who was starting out in college, starting off his online business, what would you say are the major differences between the two? And obviously you've changed and evolved into the person you are, because you can manage the companies and the business you have now, but what's the major difference?
Oh, that's great. That's a great question. I think the main difference is that I've really taken the approach over the last several years of hiring other people to assist with tasks, and so I can really focus on income generating, revenue generating tasks, the main ones. And that has helped me save so much time over the years. And it was from reading and incorporating like the 4-hour work week with Tim Ferriss, and taking those principles and really integrating them into it. And that gives you like a framework of what it is. But then when you realize and you make a list of stuff that you're doing every day, and the stuff that you can like take off your plate and give to someone else to do, makes you a lot more effective. And it allows you, just like he put in that book, he's a lot more effective with just working 4 hours a week or whatever, however his time schedule was. But the thing that was that, you're going to be a lot more effective with less hours that you're working. So if you're putting in that full 8 hours a day, you're going to be very effective compared to other people that are doing, mundane tasks that do it. So that's one thing I think that's very important, is really, if you're running your own business, I think one of the first things you do is get some sort of assistant to help you with what you're doing. No matter if it's, start them off at an hour to a week, you know what I mean? You can find a virtual one, whatever it is, and then make a list of stuff you do every day, or you consistently do, or number one, you don't like doing, which is what I have, a list going. And I'm like, as soon as I can get this off and then my plate, this is what I want to do. And once it's done, and it takes a couple months for them to learn exactly how to do it, how it should be done, or how you want it done, then you can really focus your time on other tasks that are really going to generate income, right? Which is, for most people, it's talking to it's talking to your clients, talking to potential clients, talking to customers. If you're in real estate, looking at properties, talking to investors, underwriting properties, those are going to be the ones that are really driving growth. Posting to LinkedIn is not really going to, it's great for your business and it's something that you should do, but it's something that's not going to, push the meter, right? Or like designing your logo, you know what I mean? And then I think the second thing is also back then it was kind of everything was focused on me. And now when you start taking money from investors, the light changes a lot and you're investing alongside them. So what's good for the investor is good for you too. But it's something that is you're really focused on the investor. You're focused on other people that are working with you that have put their trust into you to do what you said you're going to do. And every project's going to have bumps in the road. There's going to be really good months and there's going to be months that are less than what you probably estimated. And what you're doing there is really just kind of ironing out everything and whatever gets thrown at you, working through that business plan to show a good return to your investors.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So on that note, we're going to wrap up. Do you have any parting comments for our audience, Charles?
I would say, find out, list up what you're doing, what you want to do in the next 10, 15, 5, 10, 15 years of your life and kind of work back from there. So figure out what your goals are and kind of work back to figuring out how you're going to achieve them and bring it back to as close of a daily or weekly type of time frame for your goals. And that will help you to achieve all your goals through. And once you see that progress, that's going to make you unstoppable in your journey.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so tell us, Charles, how can we connect with you? Where can we find out more? And where can we find out how to invest with you?
So if you're interested in learning anything about investing in U.S. real estate, we mainly work with apartment buildings and stuff like that. It's going to be our company's harborsidepartners.com. So if you go to harborsidepartners.com, there's tons of information there. I have a twice weekly podcast. I have a YouTube channel. We have a ton of different information you can learn. We have free guides. And if you're interested in investing with us, fill out a form there and get on a call with one of the partners. And we can kind of walk you through what we do and we can add you to our new deal email list.
Wonderful, wonderful. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, then the links that Charles just mentioned will be in the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then down below in the description section, we'll have the links for him too. Do check him out and see if he can help you build some passive income through investing. All right. Thank you so much, Charles. We have to have you back on Money Talkies, but today, thank you so much. And thank you for listening to me and Gull and Charles. Today, I will be back with another amazing guest on finding out how they change their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull signing off. Take care and bye for now.